Yep, good evening. So last session we stopped at work learning about classes, properties, and what else we learned about abstract classes, templates, how to design the templates. Now another important polymorphism we discussed how to use, right? How it works. Now another important in TypeScript, basically you need to know about TypeScript, how to measure things to understand generics. We have to understand the concept of generics. Actually, what is generic and how it works? Simple one point I will tell you here. Suppose, so we are, means I am telling one simple real world example. Suppose we have database, various database like Oracle, like MySQL, like SQL Server, so like MongoDB. So many databases are there. Now we have an application. This application have to communicate with the database. Generally, to connect with the databases, work with the database, we are planning to create a class. But every database have a different connection string, different drivers. Database drivers are different, connection strings are different. Now, what is the solution? That means will we have to create, do we need to create a class separate for every database? Or can we design a class in such a way that it can work for all databases? Working for all databases, designing a class is actually, the point is every database have its own drivers. Database drivers are different, database connections are different. Now the point is how you manage of designing different classes when you are not sure about what database they will use. That's important. So technically, now we need a solution for this, how to handle this. Another point is not only this, so many other options are there. For example, we are using, you take an example of fetch. We learned about fetch, we used Axios, so many things we learned. Now, this fetch and Axios like methods are designed in such a way that they can work with any API in the backend. Any API, any kind of data. An array is coming, an object is coming, so an string is coming, it can handle anything. That means how they can design a method in such a way that can handle any kind of data. Now you have one solution. In TypeScript, we can make it as any type. Am I right? But what is problem in any type? The problem in any type is, so first you started with a string. So later you sent some number. Will it accept? It will accept. I told you only initialization, it will restrict the data type. Assignment, you can assign anything. You remember that? When you are configuring the data type, when you are defining and configuring the data type, only initialization have the problem, the only initialization, right? So we have only initialization. Initialization means what? If you initialize string, then it is fixed as string. If you don't initialize and data type is any, it can handle any type. It can, why you designed any type? Because we are not sure what type of data comes. Now, after you know what type of data came, then why can't you restrict it? Understood? Once you know that an array, an object is coming of a particular type, why can't you restrict it? Why you still kept as any? I hope you understood the point. That means initially we are not sure about the type. That is the reason we made it as any. And once the data comes, we know now the type. Once we know the type, why still it is any? It is not good. Why? Because some contradictory values may store. Contradictory values, the values which are not suitable, they may store. So any is not a solution. So what is the requirement here? We need something which is initially type safe. We need something which is initially type safe. But once it knows the type, it should be strongly typed. So that is what generic is. Generic is used for that. Actually, generics allow to configure type safe component. So what is a type safe component means? Type safe component allows to handle any type. It allows to handle any type before the value is known. So type safe component allow to handle any type before the value is known. And once the data type of value is known, then it can fix, then it can make it strongly typed. That is very important. Then it can make it strongly typed. That means once the data type of value is known, then it can make it strongly typed. That means designing any type is not a solution, because any type will allow to assign any another value. So we need to design something in such a way that it should allow to manage. So it should allow to handle. So this is what we need to know. So generic allows to configure such things, right? Actually, generally in TypeScript allows generic class, generic property, and even a generic method. That means what can be generic? You can have a class generic, you can have a property generic, you can have a method generic. Actually, some technologies that support generics, they have constructor also generic, but in TypeScript we don't. In TypeScript, generic constructors are not supported, but the technologies that support generics, usually Microsoft technologies usually support generics. They support generics concept because TypeScript is a Microsoft language. So, and Microsoft, many technologies have a support of generics concept. And their constructor also can be generic, but not in TypeScript, because you know already TypeScript constructors cannot overload. So, and TypeScript constructors are anonymous. So constructor cannot be generic here. But people who learn some Microsoft technologies, they know that constructor also can be generic. But here it is not possible. So TypeScript allows generic class, generic property, and generic methods. Let's see what is point about making a class generic or a property generic. That means entire class works for a specific type. What is the purpose of making a method generic? Entire class will not be working for specific type. Only a method is working for specific type. That depends on your requirement. That means if I have to design a class, so and all its members working for same type then you'd use a generic class. In a class, there can be so many generic, non-generic things, and one must be generic. That you can do by using a generic method. You can make methods generic, class generic, and all this. Now we will find a solution for this one. Now, see what I am doing here. So let's open this. Means how we configured here. So we are creating a simple TypeScript app here. Now here we are creating a class. Before creating the class, let's keep this now. Here I'm creating an interface. That means I'm creating an contract. I'm creating a contract, and this is Oracle. And as per the Oracle connections, we need username. Oracle have a username string type. Oracle have password, that is a string type. Oracle have some database, that is also string type. This is Oracle connections. So, and we have an interface like MySQL. So MySQL, that is interface of MySQL, and MySQL uses actually connects using a host. It is a string type, and it uses user, which is a string, and password, that is also a string, and it will have a database, and that is also string. Now we have an interface like MongoDB. So, and MongoDB uses an URL only for connection, that is a string. Now the point is, every database have a different connection string. Now I need to design a class in such a way, and I have to give the class database. I have to design a class database, and I have to give this class to my developers in such a way that this should work for any database. Actually, many technologies earlier have the problem of handling these kind of situations, and that is the reason developer have to remember different types of approaches, different types of classes to communicate with different types of database. Even today, this problem is there. Now, all technologies are trying to reduce. That means they are trying to design components less in number and handle more in functionality. That means they are trying to reduce this. But still, majority of several technologies still don't have only one class which can handle all situations. So that means different technologies have different classes designed in their library to communicate with different database. Even if you know any database communication in Java, .NET like technologies, suppose you belong to some .NET like technologies, to connect with the database, you have a lot of providers. So generally people call them as database providers like OLEDB data providers are there, ODBC data providers are there, That means we have so many types of providers, OLEDB, ODBC. So we have Oracle providers are there. To communicate with different database, we have different. Like, for example, OLEDB is used to connect with databases like MS Access is a database, like Excel databases, right? ODBC can be used to connect with like some SQL server, MySQL, something like this. Now, the point is, why you are giving so many classes? So one class should able to manage all this. That is very difficult because a lot of driver related issues will come. Maximum, the technologies are trying to overcome this issue and they are trying to reduce the number of drivers. They are trying to reduce, but still they haven't found a solution of only one which can work for all. Some issues are there, but all technologies are able to reduce the number of classes. They reduced the number of classes. Even if you know CSS also, CSS transitions, CSS effects are not understandable to every browser. Actually, for that, what we have to do, we have to use a lot of plugins. Earlier, we have plugins like WebKit is a plugin. WebKit is a plugin. MS is a plugin. Opera is a plugin. So we have another plugin like Mozilla is a plugin. These are all the plugins required. And do you know WebKit is a plugin used for browsers like Edge. It is used for browser like Safari. So it is used for browser. Now for Opera, we have a separate plugin. Now what they have tried to do is they tried to remove this and they made WebKit itself possible to use Opera also. That means reducing. Instead of using lot of things, reducing. This kind of things we can achieve. So now I want this class to work with any kind of database. That means it should be open to handle any type. Then we will mark it in an angle brace as type. This is generic type. And remember, this T is just a reference to tell type. It is formal. You can use A to Z any number, X, Y, Z, or you can simply write type also. Traditionally, developers have an habit of writing that as type. T refers to type. That's it. It is not that it is a mandatory. It is just formal. That means what does this means that now the database class is a generic type. Okay. Now in this we have a property called connection string. This connection string is of that generic type. And I am giving it as null type. And by default, I set as null. That means we learned already union types. Union of types. We learned about union of types. Union of types means it is a generic type or a null type. By default, it is null. Until the value is not supplied, it is null. Right now, very important here, what we are doing is we are writing a method called connect. We have a public connect method. This connect method have to get the connection string and use it. I will just use a for. So where property of in. So this dot connection string, we are accessing the connection string. And what we are doing, we are printing console.log. I'm just writing a logic to print the property and to print the value. The value is printed in this way. This dot connection string of what property. We are printing like this. This is just to print the details of the connection string. Now, very important in this is we created a class as generic and it have a connection string of generic. Now see what we are doing is we are creating an object let obj. That means now I am designing an application, means I want to connect with, I am writing console log. So with connecting with Oracle, I am connecting with Oracle. Means in my application, I am connecting with Oracle. Then what I am doing, I am creating an Oracle object is equal to new, which class? Database class. And it is expecting what type of database you are going to connect. Now into this, I will pass I Oracle into it. I pass I Oracle into this. And interestingly, you will see now Oracle have a property called, what is the property? Connection string. And you can see this connection string we have, the connection string property. You can observe this connection string is of type Oracle type. This connection string is of type Oracle. That means now into this connection string, you cannot pass anything else, only Oracle connections. That means I'm using host. Host is not a member because Oracle connection don't have host. Oracle connection have what? Username. And what is the type of username? So string Scott. and it have password. Password is a tiger. And we have database. As per the rules, you need connection string with the database, some EMPDB like this. So this is the database class working for only Oracle, strictly Oracle, nothing else. It will not allow anything else inside this. Now I am using console.log, and here I am defining. So here I am configuring. Suppose I am connecting with MySQL, Roughly I am defining this. Now what we will do, let MySQL is equal to new database. Into that I will pass MySQL, and automatically now you can see MySQL. So we have MySQL dot connection string. It is of type SQL connection string. And this time username is not allowed. We need to use only host. And host is suppose local host. And we need, still it is a problem because all details in the connection string are mandatory. We haven't marked optional. If we marked optional, we can use them. That means here I will say some user. User is like some root. So we have some password like 1, 2, 3, 4 something. And we have database. Database is like database, STUDB something. That means now we are creating another console log, and here we are defining connecting with MongoDB. So, and what it will do here. So MongoDB, and here we are defining let Mongo and is equal to new database, and it is MongoDB. Now strictly this class is only for MongoDB. That means MongoDB, Mongo.connection string, and this connection string will have to accept only this. And what are that? It have only URL. So MongoDB : /127.00127.017. That's how we define. Now still we are just assigning, we are not printing. Now I need to print these details. Then what we have to do, Oracle.connect, which will print the details. Am I right? So we are just assigning. We have to print all those details. That means MySQL.connect. It will print those connection details. And here we are defining Mongo.connect. It will print. So we are not designing several classes. We are creating only one class. And it can work for different situation. That means it can work for different situation. Let's compile this here. So command, and here we have tsc. Yeah. So we have tsc index.ts and node index.js. And you can see it is going to display all those options. That means we designed a class which is initially opened for any type of data. And once you mention the data type, now it is restricting to that particular type, right? It will not allow any another type. Now the class is generic and the property is generic. This is the concept of actually where we use this kind of generic. Not only this, so many are there. This is one example. How do you configure? As I told you, we can have a generic method. We can have a method as generic. For example, suppose I am designing, this is one concept, how you configure that and define. Suppose I am creating a simple, so class have demo. This class is not generic. And we have a method called public some add. This is a method. And I want this method as generic. For example, better option I will give you, class. I am creating a service class. This service class is having get data method. Get data is a method. I need to design this method in such a way that it should work for any type of data. But once you tell that it is object, it should work only for that object. Once you say that it is array, it should work only for array. Then how do you design? That means just like fetch method. So you interestingly see the fetch method. Fetch method have a then method promise. So if you are using a URL which is returning one object only, then fetch method returns one object only. If you use a URL returning multiple, then fetch method will return an array. It is changing its return type, right? According to what URL you are passing. That means now I want this method to work for different situations. Then we can make this as generic type. We can make this as generic type. So once I make this as generic type, now you can see here, we can access those details and print the details. So whatever we pass into that, we can define. Actually, once you make this as generic type, here, whatever data comes, this also can be that generic type. The data can be of that particular generic type. And what you have to do is, we have to just write a logic to print the data. Whatever data comes, we have to print the data. I'm just roughly writing. If it is an object, you have to write a different logic. Array, we have to write a different logic, right? Initially, I'm just using a simple data console log. Now see how to configure. So actually, we have various types of data coming from API. Like what interface? I will create iProduct. iProduct is an interface which contains product name string. It contains price number. It contains stock, which is a boolean. Now suppose I have an interface. That is iEmployee. And employee contains first name, which is a string. And it contains last name. Like this, we define the type. We have last name, which is a string type. We have designation, which is also a string type. Like this, we define. Now observe carefully. This service method should work for any kind of data. And it should work for any data. Is it an object or an array? Anything. For example, see now what we are agreeing. We are creating an object for the service. After creating an object for the service, through that object we are accessing. Suppose I will make this as TV, okay? And I will say TV dot, we have get data. What type of data we are expecting into it? We are expecting a iProduct type data, understood? When we are expecting iProduct type data, you see it is expecting product type. It is expecting product type. You cannot pass any another type. And remember what type it is. It is object. It is object. Object should contain name. So an object should contain price. Object should contain stock. We will put true or false. And interestingly, this method can work for, so suppose we are accessing get data. Suppose many products are coming. Then what it can do is, it can use iProduct of array type. If it is configured as an array type, automatically your method is expecting array type data. That means now we cannot pass an object into this. Understood? It is not valid. Why? Because this time it is expecting an array of objects. And what are those objects? Again, it is a name, some mobile. So it is like price. So it is some price. It is like stock. So that is true. And we can add another object like this. That means only one method working for different situations. That's good. These are generic methods. These are generic methods. Now class is not generic. Class is not generic. So making a class generic, again, you are making all members same type, right? Class memory will be loaded as the type. That is not good. So sometimes we need a class with generic and non-generic members. In that case, we have to make only method as generic. And here, interestingly, parameter is also generic. Method is generic, parameters are generic, properties are generic, classes are also generic. What is the advantage of this to handle various types of data? This is another example actually. But one problem is there. One point here you need to understand when you are specially dealing with generics. One of the major issue is here. This is very important. Why? Because later when you are working with APIs, you have used Axios and all these methods. Now you can make those methods generic type methods. You can design contracts and you can make them work only for the data. So it reduces the issues of writing validations. Earlier we need to validate whether the value that type or not, but automatically now React validates because it knows the type. That is good. It will not allow to compile at all, right? It says the type error is there. Earlier we have to have a problem compiling errors, means compiling not errors but taking value is problem. For that we need to use a lot of validations, but now we don't need to do that, right? That is important. So here what is important note you need to note is generic types cannot handle operations directly. Generic types cannot handle operations directly. Generic types cannot handle the operations directly. That is one problem there. Then how do we do is you have to use functions. You have to use the functions. Generic types cannot handle the operations directly because their type is unknown. When their type is unknown, you cannot handle the operations directly. You have to depend on functions. That means generally what we have to do is generics. For example, let's keep it simple here. Suppose we are using a class demo. In this class, we have a public add, and this add is a generic type. In that we have a generic type, we have B also generic type, and return also generic type. Now the return is also generic type. And it should return a plus b. It is not allowed. You cannot handle operators directly on generic types because it doesn't know the type. How you will use operators? It's not possible to use operators directly. Then generally what we have to do, we have to create a function. Suppose sum, this is taking a and b, and what it is doing, it is returning a plus b, and a we are not sure, so make it any type, b also any type. But once you use here, that means you will pass the sum into that we pass a and b. That is the right way. You cannot handle directly operations on generics. You have to use functions. Now see, I am creating an object is equal to new demo, and through that object I am accessing add. Into that I pass a number. Am I right? When I pass a number, now a b are number type, return also number type. That is good. That means a b are number type and the return also number. Now I am using this add and I am trying to send some string into it. Automatically a b are string type now. It will not allow any another type. Initially they are safe. They are open to access any type. Once you tell the type, they are no longer safe. They are strongly typed. That means you have to add the string values into this. And the return type also string, because you said return type also the type generic. So the method is generic type, parameters are generic type, return is generic type, class is generic type, properties also generic type. Only one is there, constructor is not generic type. We cannot have that, but in other technologies they can have a generic constructor. So that is for a different reason. They can handle that by using overloading options. They can manage actually. Initially, this is the concept. Now, actually, you can do a lot of things. You can write conditions. How do you write conditions? Suppose If it is number, then you can handle one operation on it. If it is string, you can handle another operation on it. That's your wish. You learn JavaScript now, you can write a condition. How we can write a condition? If type of A is equal to number, am I right? We can write like these conditions, our wish, right? If type of A is equal to what is the type number, then do some operations on it. Then do numeric functions. If it is not number string, then do some other operations. We can handle various types. We can manage various types. That depends on all your JavaScript skills, you know how to manage. This is generally how we use the generics. That is the concept of generic. So you cannot have operators directly on generic. You have to use functions. And here we have method generic, properties generic, attributes, parameters generic, return type also generic. These are very important, how generics are used and configured, right? Next important, we have another in TypeScript enums, enumeration. Enum is enumeration. Enum is enumeration. Actually, enumeration is nothing but it is a collection of constants. It is a collection of constants. And actually, TypeScript constants can be, that means TypeScript enum can have numeric constants, numeric constants, can have string constants, and can have assorted. Assorted, that means it can have number, string, and expression all together. That means many times you might have seen some websites or some people telling that enum is a collection of numeric constants, enum is a collection of related type of constants. No, all these are not true about enum. Enum is not a collection of numeric constants. It can have a string constants, it can have expression constants also. And it can have a combination of both of them, number, string, and expressions also. So that is the reason enum is just a collection of constants. Generally, what is the meaning of constants collection? Constants collection means you know already that they are all not assignable. That means all require, means all enum declarations, all enum declarations require initialization. All enum declaration require initialization, compulsory. But what is the speciality here is, so one important advantage is, so if you are configuring enum with number type, then they have auto implementation, you can say auto initialization of value. They have auto initialization of value. That means if you configure enum with a number type, then they have auto initialization of value, not string types, only numbers. Auto initialization of value. That means actually, so initial value starts with 0. So initial value starts with 0. And the other values are initialized based on previous value. The other values are initialized based on previous value. That's what actually it happens. So technically, initial value based on the previous value, initial and based on the previous values. So initial value starts with 0 and other values are initialized based on the previous value. Actually, let's see generally how we define enum. Means I will show you the point here. What is the concept behind this? Generally, when you're creating enum, enums are defined by using enum and enumeration name. So enumeration name, I'm just giving some values is an enumeration. In these values, actually, suppose generally where we use enums, collection of related type of constants initialized with values which cannot be changed. Usually what we do is, for example, just practical example, I will tell you where we use generally. So for example, date functions. We learned about date functions. Date functions like get hours, get minutes, get date. All these date functions will return a number. They return number. All the date functions usually return a number. Now, what is problem is we want to display dates in a weekday and month name full format. Actually, what happens when I use, let's see directly here. When I use here LET, suppose now is equal to new date. So this loads the current date and its data type is any. Already we discussed that. Now it loads the current date, or you can pass any date in a string format, year, month, day format. Now the point is, now I am using console.log. I am using, so here manufactured, so or say month, I am giving the month. How to access the month? So now dot, we have get month method. We have get month method. And we are using, so in /n, in the next line, we have weekday, and here we are using now dot get day. It will return the weekday. This is month and weekday. We are just using these two things. Now, actually, you can observe that these are going to return, these are compiled, and we run this, and you can see this is going to return. It is going to return 6 and 3. This month starts with 0, 1, 2, 3. So that means Jan is equal to 0, February equal to 1. And remember, these are, that means weekdays, months, these are fixed. They, no extension, no removing, fixed. And they have certain fixed values. Then what we do is we create an enum for them, enumeration. We create an enum. And the enumeration name I will give as, suppose weekdays is an enum. Weekdays is an enum. And in this enum, they have a key and value collection. And the key is always string type. That means just we define weekday as Sunday. And its value is 0. And you don't define, so usually you don't define this value into it. Automatically, as I told you, it will be initialized with 0. If you don't define, it will be initialized with 0. It is 0. It is 0. Suppose I defined Monday, that means we don't initialize based on the previous value, it increments 1. That means the Monday will be 1. Suppose you initialized Sunday is equal to 201, then Monday will be 202. And for example, above we have some other value, Tuesday like this, and you see Tuesday will be how much? It starts with 0. Initially, it starts with 0. Whatever you initialize, it is initialized. Whatever you not initialized, it will be based on previous value. If there is no previous value, it will be 0. Right? So if there is no previous value, it will look above the value, above the previous. If still there is no value, then it will start from 0. So what you initialize, it will take. The next value depends on the previous value. And if there is no previous value, it is the initial value, it starts with 0. Auto implementation of these things. And very important, actually, suppose I said Sunday, Monday like this. So I defined this and I configured some Tuesday, so Wednesday, so Thursday, like this we define. So we have Friday, we have Saturday. Now, how to access? We can access with reference of this. That means what we can do in order to access, I will just put here. So here I will just put an option, next line, just temporarily to show you. So how we can access any value, enum value. Just what we have to do is, here we have to just access enum name. Enum name is weekdays. Dot we have Sunday, Monday, and it will return the value inside it. Value inside it means it will return 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 like this. That means actually we access with reference of keys. And when you access with reference of keys, we can access like this. That means you can see it will display that is 1. But actually we can use, this is regularly asked in interviews of TypeScript, what is enum reverse mapping? Enum reverse mapping is by the reference of value you can access key. Actually by reference of key we access value. Reverse mapping is by reference of value you can access key. Here we need that actually. See, get month is returning what? Month number. Get day is returning what? Weekday number. Now what I will do is I will access enum name. Enum name is what? Weekdays. Weekdays is the enum name. Generally to access the value we have to use dot. But if you want to access the key based on value, you have to use a square brace. Into the square brace, you have to pass the value, it will return the key. The value is day name. That means day number I am passing as value. Based on that, it will return its key name. That means now you can see that we passed a value into this, and based on that, it will return the key name. This is called reverse mapping of enum. You can see it is reverse mapping of enum. That means you can access the value with reference of key. We can access the key with reference of value. The same thing, we have to maintain another enum. So with a collection of some months, that enum name is months. So we have like Jan, we have like Feb, we have like March, we have like April, we have like May, we have June, we have like July. All these we are defining. August, and all these we configured. Like this you add. Here also reverse mapping. What we have to do, we have to access months of and the month number. Month number, that is reverse mapping of enum. Then it can access that enum and it can display. That is, and it can access those values. It can display that. This is the combination. This is actually the concept of enum. And very important, enum must have a initializer if it is string type. Enum must have a initializer if it is string type. So enum can have number and string combinations. Both can be there. Only string, only number, your wish. But if it is a string type, then it must have a initializer. That means auto implementation will not work. That means, so if previous value is a string, then you have to initialize value. If previous value is string, then you have to initialize value compulsory. You cannot leave empty, right? If previous value is number, it can increment. If it is not number, if it is string, then you have to initialize. That is very important. That means you see here, for example, I am creating a simple enum and values, and into this, so we have some value as a, and this a is set with 0. It is set with 0. A is set with 0. What I am doing here is B is set with a string. Some string I assigned into this, and C I cannot leave empty. I cannot leave empty. Remember, this is 0 number, this is string. It's okay. We can have a combination of string and number constants. And but here it is not allowed. Why? Because there is a previous string. Then here either you initialize a number into it, understood, or you initialize a string into it, but you cannot leave it empty. So auto implementation of values is possible only when the previous is a number, right? If not, then it is not possible. Another important, as I told you, that you can have, that means you can configure. So enum with the expression, enum with expression, but very important. But enum will not allow, will allow only expression that returns string or number. So Boolean types are not allowed in enum, whether it is a value or it is a expression. Booleans are not allowed. That is the reason in some interviews of TypeScript, they ask a question like, what are the operators not supported in enum? That is a tricky question. What operators are not supported in enum? So that means any operator that returns true or false is not supported in enum. That means now what we can do is, here you can see, I can configure in this way. I can say that, so A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, C is equal to A plus B. It is an expression. It is okay, working fine. That means console.log, I will say addition is equal to addition is equal to whatever the value. So values of C, it can print that value and display. That means you see here tsc index.ts node index.js, and here you can see that here it is going to display that value there. And very important, if you are writing any expression like A greater than B, this is not allowed. So that means anything that returns a Boolean is not allowed. Boolean values are not allowed in enum. Why? If anybody asked why? Usually they ask, right? Because interviewers have a lot of attitude. If you are answering every question, they can't bear that, right? That means they think that they don't have good skills to ask you. If you are answering every question, then he tries to show his attitude now. That means he tries to show up his language to you. Several interviews, generally medium, small scale companies, interviewers try to show up their talent to you. They don't test your talent. They say that you don't know this, you don't know this, you don't know this. I know all this. Right? Due to that, once you start answering every question and perfect, then he thinks that he need to ask something which you can't answer. That is his main aim now. Right? In that case, lot of questions will come into picture which are not actually reasonable. We don't expect those kind of nonsense questions to be asked, but still we can expect such questions from rare interviews. Because usually once you start answering everything, then they can't bear that. Right? So that means they want to show up that you don't know something and you have to learn from us. Right? Due to this, generally when for a senior person, if they are doing like that, then we will ask them, are you serious? Do you want me to really tell the answer for this? Right? to a senior person if they are interviewing, we seriously ask them that, are you serious? You are not interviewing a fresher. I'm an experienced guy. And are you serious in asking this kind of question to me? Right? Because they are not reasonable actually. But you freshers have to bear everything, but experienced people will not. That means interviewer must be careful in asking questions to them, because they are very seniors, experts, and companies badly need them. They can't simply reject them. They have to take them. In that case, sometimes questions will be in such a way that, so you will think, is it reasonable? But actually it is reasonable. Sometimes it is reasonable, right? Why boolean is not allowed? Why number is allowed? Why string is allowed? Why boolean is not allowed? Why null is not allowed? Why undefined is not allowed? Can you guess the reason? Question reasonable, na? Sometimes question is not reasonable, but here question is reasonable. Right? Why it is not allowed? Tell me. Then I can understand how much you understood the concept, how much you are concentrating on the concept. First, tell me definition of enum. Then you have an answer. What is definition of enum? Enum is a collection of constants. Is boolean constant? It should change to true, false, na? Then how? You cannot say that all true every time. Boolean means it should change. Am I right? Boolean should change. Am I right? In that case, how it can be? Null means expecting a value dynamically. It is no value. You should assign. It will not allow. How? Right? That is the point. Technically, this is one point why booleans are not allowed, nulls not, because it's constant. Means question is very good. It is reasonable question, right? And sometimes we see people asking even question like you see. So here they have a question like, so is it valid? Enum itself is a constant, and again you are declaring as a constant. What does this mean at all? It is valid. It is valid means there might be some use of this, right? This is valid. That means this is very complex. These kind of questions you can expect for experienced people, right? Because generally, suppose you have 7-10 years experience in a technology and you are changing company. When you are changing company, that company will not take directly. They will also have to conduct interview to you. That means, do they have questions for a 10 years experience person? Yes, they have. That means you may think like, for 10 years experience person, what should I ask? He must know everything. No, we have questions for even 20 years experience, 30 years experience people also. Because they know, but certain areas they may not explore because of their projects. Once they start working on a project, they are busy with only what they are working on. They don't know other things. Sometimes even people don't know what upgrades are happening, right? Due to that, even they have experience, we have questions for them because there are certain areas which they never explored. We have questions for them also. We have to ask questions. We have to conduct interview to experience. What we will ask them? Thinking that experience means he knows everything. No, he have certain area. We have certain areas where no developer can go there. So we can ask questions from there, right? Those are architecturally strong, right? So this is very good question, right? We can ask this for extreme experience people, right? Is it valid? If valid, why? Why you are writing a constant enum? Enum itself is a constant. What do you think? What do you think itself is a constant? Anything? Any idea that comes into your mind? The reason behind giving a constant enum is a constant enum is given when there are expressions defined in a enum. Enum is marked as a constant when expressions are given in enum because expression may change dynamically. Am I right? Expression means it can change dynamically. An expression can change dynamically, and making constant telling that expressions should not change dynamically. And that is not a rule. This is a tradition used by developers to tell other developers that this contains expressions which should not change. So that is the reason you will find this very rarely anybody writing, because it doesn't matter, because everybody knows that enum itself is a constant. But experienced people have an habit of writing this when they write expressions in an enum. Why they write like that? That depends, because he wants to tell the developer that these expressions should not change, right? That is actually developers have certain standards, rules, and developers, based on their experience, they have some tricks to implement. For example, suppose there is a page. When I am writing a script or a style in a page, generally where the scripts are written, you can write in head section, you can write in body section. Do you know scripts are written outside body section are faster in rendering? They are faster in rendering. For example, see here. So this is the this page is not there. Actually, I'm just writing here some script, roughly script. So let's write a function. So as some body load, and here we say document. Just I'm using some hello. Just the option here. So that is the option, and we have the body section. And in the body section, body we have just yeah, that's it. We have this script configured here. Let's run this and see. And you can observe that here. And what is it? Body on load. That is body load. We'll do one thing. We'll put a paragraph. So document dot query selector, and we will put a paragraph inner HTML as welcome. Something like this we define. Now you see here. So I'm inspecting. I am inspecting this, and I am going to network category. Where is the network category? Network, yeah. And in this network category, suppose I am adding, so welcome to some JavaScript, something like React, something I defined like this. I given some heading style here, and in that we will keep that content. Okay, I'm doing this, and you can see how many seconds it has taken to load this content. Okay, you can observe here how much content it has taken to load. So you can see DOM content loaded. How many? 928 milliseconds. It has taken 928 milliseconds to load the page, right? It is the time taken. What I will do now, I will go here, and I will remove the script from here. As per books, as per general tutorials, script is in head or body. But I am an experienced person, I will write outside. And you see, I am writing outside, it is working, and it is 312 seconds. It is performing better. and I'm writing outside. No book will tell you that write outside. No tutorial in the world tell you, no trainer in the world tell you that you can write outside, but writing outside is faster. But nobody will recommend you. That means if you say that, do I need to write outside to make it fast? We will say, no, don't write. Then why you written? I written because I know my situation of this page. I know the behavior of this page. If you write outside, it will cause abnormal behavior. Those situations I know. As a developer, I know my page performance. I know my page consequences. Then I know that outside is okay. But every page outside is not okay. Understood? These kind of techniques you will see in general programming codings. That is the reason some coding techniques you will never hear. You will never hear about them. You never tried them in your life, in your projects. But somebody asked you in interview, do you know this? Now you will have a doubt. Is it like that? Can we write like this? Even I am experienced, I don't know. Because I never done this, because I don't know this at all. These kind of things will you come across regularly. And you can simply, frankly leave them. You don't need to bluff or attempt them. If you don't know, you say that I never used it. That is the better, fair answer. I never used it. I never came across with this. But actually, he may use it because he knows the performance. Right? That is the point. So you will see nobody writing an enum as a constant. But you will see some people writing enums constant. Does it make any difference? It will not make any technical difference in its functionality, but it will be a difference in behavior, performance behavior. And it will later restrict this enum to have some expressions not to be modified dynamically, changing dynamically. Due to any technical reason, if it expression tries to change dynamically, it will never happen because you marked as constant. But it is not necessary because enums itself, they are constants. But we don't know. Some situations may do that. That is the reason we prevent it. Why they have given this option if it is not required at all? That means the rare situations may come. Right? These are very important to understand. That means an enum can be configured as a constant. So this is constant. That means you can configure enum as constant if it is defined with expressions. If it is defined with expressions. If it is defined with expressions, you can do that. That is very important, but it is not mandatory. It is not a rule, but we have such tricks to apply on enums because in very rare cases, they may have effect with some dynamic behavior and we don't want that to happen. That is not required every time. 99% not required. We will not take that 1% chance. Right? 99% it is not required and we will not take that 1% chance. We want this 100% to be the same behavior. That is why some type of such tricks will be applied on these enums and all, right? This is enum, how we can work with the enums. And one more last in this, you have to understand about modules and how to work with modules in TypeScript. That we'll see tomorrow. Right? And tomorrow modules, after discussing, we will see how to create a React project with TypeScript now. Tomorrow itself, we will see how do we create a React application with TypeScript and how we can use TypeScript in general React. What changes you will find now. Then we will see how to use React with Redux like library. That will make us complete aware on React. Okay. So tomorrow we'll continue. Right. That's